Hi everyone, and welcome to our book club recommendations video for 2021. My name's Emily, and myself and some of the members and organisers of Leeds LGBT+ Literature Festival and Book Club have come together to let you know about some of the books that we've really enjoyed in the last 12 months. I hope you enjoy the video and the rest of the Literature Festival.
Hi everyone, I'm Kirsty. I'm the Secretary of Leeds LGBT+ Book Club, and I'm also one of the organisers of the Leeds LGBT+ Literature Festival. So today I wanted to do a book recommendation in respect of a book we read this year at Book Club, which is this. It's called Pet, and it's written by Akwaeke Emezi. So Pet is a young adult fiction book. I feel like the back that tells you a little bit about it is almost quite deliberately vague, and I actually really appreciated that because it meant that I didn't really know what to expect, so everything was a bit of a surprise. However, that said, given that I'm doing a recommendation for this book, I do feel that it's appropriate for me to mention that the book, whilst nothing's graphic, it does cover themes of child abuse. Now, despite having that kind of heavy theme, I was quite surprised by actually how easy and how quick this book was to read. I really enjoyed that. My favourite thing about this book is actually the diversity that the author was able to get into their characters. There's a lot of diversity in there, but it's done very, very naturally, and it's just, information and a part of the characters, but without becoming a focal point for any of them. So I really appreciated that approach being taken because it was positive representation, with a lot of representation, but done in such a way that it just felt very, very natural and organic, which sometimes gets overlooked in books. So I also quite enjoyed the sort of supernaturally elements to this book, and it wasn't such a huge part of the story that it overtook it, but there were sort of elements in there that just sort of made it a little bit different, which I really enjoyed. I think a takeaway for me was that this book very much makes us sort of actually, challenge the perceptions that we have of monsters. And it also sort of brought home to me a bit of the importance about being able to have access to information, and sort of be more aware of our surroundings and the people that we're around. I really like this. I think there are so many different elements to this book that you could interpret differently and people might read differently. But I really like that. I feel like it made it quite thought-provoking, and certainly lots to talk about once you've read it. Lots to discuss. So yeah, that's Pet.
My name is Maria, and I recommend The Song of Achilles by Madeleine Miller. It's a retelling and a very new take on the story of Iliad through the eyes of a character that wasn't really given much platform in the original story. It's a tale of love and loss, of glory and fame, in which mortals and gods are equally real. It's written in a beautiful prose, with characters really coming to life. It's told in a way that makes for a great introduction to Greek mythology, but it's also a lovely continuation if you're already really passionate about the subject. It's a wonderful book, and I fully recommend it.
Hello, my name's Roy, and I'm a member of the Leeds LGBT+ Book Club. I like graphic novels, and so today I'm going to talk to you about George Takei's They Called Us Enemy. George Takei is an Asian American actor, most famous for his role in Star Trek as Mr. Sulu from 1966. He has 3.2 million followers on Twitter and 9.2 million followers on Facebook. So nowadays he's known better as a civil rights and LGBT+ spokesman. Now, They Called Us Enemy tells of his personal experience of his family living in Los Angeles at the time, being relocated following the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941 during the Second World War. After the attack, the west coast of America was designated a military zone, and anyone of Japanese ancestry was forced to leave, pack what they could take with them, and transported to internment camps across the country. Now, George was only 4 at the time and spent 4 years with his parents, his younger brother and sister in these camps until Japan surrendered in August 1945. and being so young, he remembers it as a big adventure. Later on, as a teenager, he had conversations with his father, which told his side of the story, and there were tales of solidarity within the camp and threats of deportation. And so it goes on to make parallels with the current situations in America, with Mexican children being separated from their parents and a ban on Muslims entering the United States. The rest of the book tells of his later life, when he met Martin Luther King Jr., his role in Star Trek, and in 2015 he had a role in the musical Allegiance, which tells of his this little known story and history of America during the war. Now, the themes in this are United States history and how the society doesn't really learn from the past. The art by Harmony Becker is clean and simple, and the other two writers, Justin Eisinger and Stephen Scott, help produce a well laid out story which skips from past to present and keeps the story interesting. The story is a little sugar-coated, but that's because it's told from a child's perspective, really. And even afterwards, when he talks to his father about what happened, his dad is still patriotic about the United States. Now, it was first published in 2019. This is my copy now. But in October 2020, there's an expanded edition. It doesn't really expand on the story, but it does have some old family photos. The book itself I quite liked. I read other books about German concentration camps and life in Japan before the bombing of Hiroshima, but this one tells a different aspect of the Second World War, and it's by a person that I quite like, so hopefully you'll like it too. Cheers, bye.
Hi, my name's Emily, and I'm going to recommend two books today that we've actually read in the book club in the last 12 months. The first is Loveless, about a young woman called Georgia who's just gone to Durham University with some of her friends, and the book is about her discovering that she's asexual and aromantic. It's young adult fiction, which I really enjoy, and what I loved about this book is following her journey to learn more about the asexual and aromantic spectrums and discovering what they mean for her. There's some really good representation of other identities and labels in there as well, and it's just really nicely written. I loved that they're quite short chapters, so it was quite good for me to be able to pick up and read a chapter on the bus on my way to work. The other book has asexual representation, and it's called Let's Talk About Love, about a biromantic asexual woman called Alice. I'm going to read you a little snippet of how she describes what it means to her to be asexual. Sex, Alice has decided, was like jogging. All the people in the world could say it was so amazing and great for you, but if you didn't care about jogging, you'd rather spend your time with a Netflix queue and a box of donuts. And I just think that sums up asexuality in the way that Alice experiences it really well. And I really love this book. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm going to be talking about An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon. So in 2020, just in time for the pandemic starting, I decided that I was going to read one book a week right the way through the whole year, which stood me in pretty good stead through all of the lockdown inside times. And this was my favourite book out of all of them. So from 52 plus books last year, this is the book that I loved the most out of everything that I read. So I really wanted to do a review and share why that was with people so that you could see if you would like to read it as well. So it's set on a ship that's left Earth for the Promised Land. So Earth was deteriorating and people needed to leave. It's really, I would say it's not the easiest of books in terms of topics. So it explores systemic oppression aboard this ship. So there is racism, violence, sexual violence, and a lot of that revolves around kind of sexuality, gender, and ableism. So it can be tough at times reading, but for an exploration of the lives of enslaved people, I think it does incredibly well to do it as sensitively and as kind of nicely as it does almost. So it is certainly in no way gratuitous, but there is a lot of that type of violence in there. So Asta, who is the main character, I'll read you the blurb from the back of the book. Asta has little to offer folks in the way of rebuttal when they call her ogre and freak. She's used to the names, she only wishes there was more truth to them. If she were truly a monster, she'd be powerful enough to tear down the walls around her until nothing remains of her world. Asta lives in the low-deck slums of the HSS Matilda, a space vessel organised much like the antebellum South. For generations, Matilda has ferried the last of humanity to a mythical promised land. On its way, the ship's leaders have imposed harsh moral restrictions and deep indignities on dark-skinned sharecroppers like Asta. Embroiled in a grudge with a brutal overseer, Asta learns there may be a way to improve her lot if she's willing to sow the seeds of civil war. So it's already got, an exploration of systemic oppression. It's got a brutal overseer that Asta goes kind of to war with. And Asta is neurodiverse. So although it's not specifically mentioned, it's heavily hinted at through the book that Asta has a sensory processing disorder and the way that she thinks and things. It's heavily hinted that she is an autistic person. So she is a lower class healer on the ship, and so because of that gets a large amount of kind of freedom to travel around the ship and do some of her work to heal people. What I especially loved about this book is the world building. And I'm a difficult person to please when it comes to world building. Things like The Left Hand of Darkness left me absolutely cold with a list of camping equipment about 6 pages long, and I hated it. So when I tell you that the world building in this book is engaging and interesting, please believe what I'm saying. Right the way through Asta's travels on the ship, you get to meet different levels of the crew, different levels of workers. You get to learn about their conditions, about the type of work that they do, about kind of health risks that exposes them to, privileges they get, privileges they don't get. And it's a really interesting exploration when you travel around, and it held my attention incredibly well, which is difficult to do. The exploration of themes that are close to my heart is something that's very interesting as well. So as well as trans, non-binary or intersex themes, there are also genderqueer hints through the book. Queer relationships are explored both in a romantic and sexual sense and in a platonic sense with the other people that Asta is in a room with and how they look after each other. It's also a complex and meaningful portrayal of trauma and the after effects of this. So when I say that there are content warnings and it can be a difficult topic, that is one of the difficult topics. But I feel that the way it focuses on the effect on the traumatised individual and shows that in great detail gives it a heightened sensitivity and moves it away from any kind of gratuitous or any sort of cheap treatment of it for anything like that, and towards a really interesting and in-depth and emotionally complex portrayal of the things that happen to the characters on board the ship. So I would really strongly recommend this book. I thought it was amazing. It talks about the plight of enslaved people. It explores a complicated world aboard a ship with a hierarchy, with systemic oppression, and with the added intricacies of a neurodiverse main character for which the representation is really, really needed and really, really appreciated. Very strong recommendation from me. Thank you.